says Teotihuacan was the place where the serpent learned miraculously to fly. That is where the individual, through inner growth, life, and battled against the forces of death, which tended to drive him down and off the bottom rung of the pyramid. If a man could triumph over the forces of death and destruction so as to reach the summit of the pyramid, the spiritual part of him could then triumph over the force of gravity, and he would become transfigured into the light of Quetzalcoatl, the evening star. The pyramid says, were invariably designed in such a way to have a level of which formed an angle which the motions of Venus in the game, man ceasing to be subject to the planetary gravity, meant a true return to the stars, a reunion of the cosmic ocean of life. When the eternal war in the human heart was resolved, the reconciliation of the two opposite forces symbolized by water and fire, man would bud and flower. Stop eating my hair. And flower from freshly matter into spirit. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Man could bud and flower from fresh. Talking about sprouting. So when you look at the symbolisms and the times and the budding and the sprouting into a new form of life, and this formation of creation. Flower, the 12 paths, the many ways that these things are symbolically displayed and symbolized. It says, but forces symbolized by water and fire could bud and flower from fresh matter to spirit, finally freeing himself from duality and shedding of man's earthly clothing to free his spirit from his mortal body. It says, Teotihuacan was a place where the serpent learned miraculously to fly. That is where the individual, through the inner growth, attained the category of celestial being. From the scant remains 2 places within the Citadel area, recently is excavated and measured by Drucker. He suggests that there may have been 2 rulers at Teotihuacan, one of the head of the right of the feather serpent, or Quetzalcoatl, who lived in one place, or second ruler presumably identified as Tezcatlipoca, who lived in what Drucker euphemistically calls the other place. If man were brought down scale and forced at the bottom of the pyramid, he would be devoured by jaguars and disintegrated, losing his individuality and having to start another cosmic cycle. Like the Persians, says Sizikli, the Mesoamericans believed that death and body disintegrated and returned to the reign of gravity. The entropy of modern science, but each birth of individual organisms was considered by the Persians to be a triumph of life over death. In Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl was considered the germ, the cause of germination in a seed, of the birth of an animal or a child, of the production of ever more abundant life. He was the Atis, the Adonis, the Tammuz, the Bacchus, Dionysus, Osiris, the quite possible the Pan of the Western world. You understand? Quetzalcoatl was also seen as a unifying symbol which could achieve the union of opposites, heaven and earth, morning and the evening star, matter and spirit, light and darkness, male and female, good and evil, which in their separate forms was Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca. The conflict between them, says Frank Waters, at their reconciliation, where they gave a moment of life to man and the universe. Out of the interplay of these opposing forces rose a world of being, change and movement, conceived as the continuous transformation of one force into another. Reconstruction of the ritual of the Mexican pyramids, a priest wearing the mask of man, or a tala, as the Aztecs called him, would go up and down the steps depending on whether his thoughts or actions supported the forces of life or death. If his thoughts and actions had favored Tezcatlipoca, he would downscale. If he favored Quetzalcoatl, he would upscale. On the face of the pyramid, man could only move slantwise, like the rays of the sun, because it was believed that only the sun was the source of all movement, and thus the power behind both Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca. So when we look at this dramatized struggle of man's soul between the forces of good and evil, the ancient Mesoamerican priests, according to Tzotzil, devised a religious ritual that enacted on the steps of the Great Pyramids, a ritual not mere pageant, but combined a knowledge of science of the time, of astronomy, philosophy, psychology, and social organization. All the pyramids in Mesoamerica so far discovered, says Tzotzil, contain symbols of two cosmic principles of life and death. In Mexico, Yucatan, Guatemala, the Honduras, all the step pyramids leading to the sky contain representations of the plumed serpent and the jaguar. Later, the ritual was transformed to a flat surface of a ball court, gradually degenerating into a mere display of Atlantic powers of blood sacrifice. Reconstruction of the original ritual largely on the basis of the exact codices. The pyramids were divided into 11 horizontal levels and 9 vertical ones, who produced 99 squares. Larger pyramids consisted of multiples of the basic system in a pattern which transferred to flat ball courts. Let's see here. You got A, life, grass, feather serpent creator, adobe house preserver, flower, joy, dog, love, deer, peace, sun, movement and power, lizard, fertility, eagle, air and wisdom, water, source of life, man. Then you got here A, skull, death, crocodile, idleness, vulture, spoiler, reed, emptiness, jaguar, hatred, monkey, inferior man, rabbit, weakness, flint, barrenness, windstorm, violence and ignorance, rainstorm, violence and destruction. So when you see here planets, stars, and constellations to certain positions, they would have been reflected in polished surface as in a frame. Thus, the obsidian mirror became the symbol of a Mexican star coat. Out of here, small mirrors of polished pyrite used to concentrate rays of the sun to light surface fires at noon on the days of the vernal equinox and summer solstice were the sole symbol of this sun coat. To understand the vernal equinox, the September and north, where the sun was coming into these particular realm of the northern hemisphere. We understand the Draco, the northern sky, and the connection with the Dracos and the northern skies. So you see here where it's talking about serpent in the sky. As it told us to go here to that, read that about why this place was the serpent learned miraculously to fly. It was talking about the balance between life and death, and finding that elevation between the two. Duality, divine duality, as it says. Peace. Y'all silly.